Hi, I'm your host, Erica Polsinelli, and welcome to Evolve by Erica, the podcast, where we talk all things spirituality, ascension, health, wellness, and beyond. I'm so excited that you are here. Come on in. Hello and welcome to Evolve by Erica, the podcast. This is Erica Polsinelli, your host, and we are here to talk about all things spirituality, 5D, ascension, and beyond. I'm so excited that you're here for this conversation. Come on in. Hello,
Hi,
guys.
hi, Erica. How are you?
I'm so excited to introduce you. I have my friend here today, Hadeep, who is such a special person, a light force on this planet, and someone who I met so serendipitously.
Yeah,
So,
random.
welcome. I'm
Thank
so
you.
happy you're here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very excited to talk to you. I always enjoy our conversations, brief or long conversations throughout the last couple of years. A lot.
They're
So
always
this is
the best.
awesome. Yeah, we definitely have some interesting conversations.
Vinny would be like, "Who is this man that you're FaceTiming?" I'm like, "You have to meet him and know him too."
Exactly. Exactly.
And they're always such soul level conversations. And that's really why I was so excited to bring you on here. So I want to start by sharing how we met because I share on this podcast how Kundalini has guided me to such amazing people, such amazing spaces, such amazing places and connections and relationships. And everything was so intuitively led. So before Kundalini, before any practice of meditation, I would go to Soul Cycle, and that would be like my release. So I would spin and have the music and the motivation from the instructors, and I would just like feel euphoric. And I slowly started to transition a little bit from that after I found Kundalini, because I finally found that way of getting what I needed within myself. And then the workouts and everything else was an addition to just creating that space within myself. And one day after Soul Cycle, I had just started practicing Kundalini, and I went to a boutique next door.
Can you say
And
her boutique name because she's
yes, Pink and
Pink,
Honey.
Pink and Honey and Roslyn?
Oh, I love it. Is it still there? I haven't been there in
Yeah,
so
Danielle is
long.
still there. Yeah, 100%.
She's amazing too. I
She's
adore
amazing.
her.
Super dope girl.
She's amazing. So I walked into this boutique and I saw this shirt and I couldn't believe my eyes. It had the long time sun mantra written on the back of the shirt. And
Right.
I was like, are you kidding me? Like, how is this here? Because when I started practicing Kundalini, I didn't know one other person practicing it or
Mhm.
one other person saying the long time sun mantra. So I picked the shirt up. I was like, okay, this shirt's for me. I need to buy this. And I'm like, I need to know who makes this shirt. Who is this? And I started to see this brand that was in Pink and Honey had like the dopest stuff. Like there was one sweatshirt that was like Animal Lover, or
Right.
was
I think
that
maybe,
it?
yeah. I think one of them, like, yeah, we do all these things with animals and how.
But it was just like so cool. Like it was a very
Thank you.
cool way of doing it. Like it
Right.
stood out to me.
Right.
So I told Danny, I was like, I need to know who made this shirt. She's like, oh my gosh, you have to, because he's amazing. Let's FaceTime him. And we literally FaceTimed you in the store. And since then, like I feel like the rest is history.
Yeah. No, it was very funny. I remember, and it's so funny that you're talking about spinning and Kundalini and
Yeah.
all this stuff because I started this clothing company 9 years ago with my business partner. I've been in the fashion business for the last 18 years, and this is my second brand called Cheerleader. And I was teaching spinning. Funny enough, I'm a spin instructor on the side. So I've been teaching spinning for like 18 years, 19 years, initially just to make some extra income while I was building my first business.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it. I loved the whole thing. And then the fact that you FaceTimed me at that time and I was teaching a class. And then when I'm like, Danielle, who's the owner of the boutique, she's like, she never FaceTimes. She'll text me from time to time for a reorder or a question. And I called her back and I was like, what the hell? And then we FaceTimed and it was awesome.
I
Especially the
know.
fact that you love that t-shirt. That t-shirt came from me going to a few Kundalini classes with my best friend Elliot, who actually owns a clothing company too in Los Angeles. And it was very funny when he wanted to take me to this Kundalini class. I was a little bit. I'm always up for adventure, I'm always up
Mhm.
for. I'm yes to everything. I knew about Kundalini. I didn't know all about it. I knew of it a lot. I grew up kind of knowing about it, but very like
How? Tell me more.
so, as you can see, I have a turban. I'm a Sikh. Not everyone who wears a turban is a Sikh, but I'm a full-fledged practicing Sikh. It's a major religion. It's actually the fifth biggest religion in the world. It's based out of India. As you can tell, don't have an Indian accent. I'm born and raised in Montreal, Canada, and so growing up as a Sikh, sometimes I would see at the temple, the Sikh temples, randomly would see a white person, like
Mhm.
a Caucasian, or even sometimes a black person, or basically someone not from Indian descent, wearing a white turban, wearing all white, where everyone else is not. And I remember asking my parents, like, "Who is that? What, like, wow, a white person wearing a turban? That's kind of cool." Like, and they were telling me like, there's this practice of Kundalini yoga, and basically they all converted to Sikhism. And I was like, oh, cool. I was young. And then growing up, you start hearing stuff and whatnot. And especially in the last, I would say, 9 years, especially when I started this brand, my best friend, Elliot in LA, he got sober. He's a fashion designer, partied hard and all that kind of good stuff. And he decided to get sober. And through his journey of sobriety, one of his buddies took him to a Kundalini class, which is very how do I say it, a la mode, fashion wise in LA.
Yeah.
If you go to a Kundalini class, you're kind of cool.
Yeah.
All the celebrities and all those celebrity trainers and he started getting into it, and he just felt amazing and amazing, and then he made it a part of his life. And I remember whenever I go to LA, I live at his place or I crash at his place, and we always do everything together. Even if we have business meetings, we'll do them together because we're able to, because we're both fashion designers and business owners. But it's very funny. He's like, okay, get up. We're going to Kundalini. I'm like, all right, cool. And that's how I learned a little bit more about Kundalini. My first class in Kundalini was very actually funny. So I didn't know that we were going to do this, like go to Kundalini. He's like wearing a white shirt, white, like, I don't know, like not yoga pants, but like those harem pants.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Get ready, we're gonna go to Kundalini." And I had nothing to wear, so I wore what I always wear: a black turban, a black T-shirt, and black basketball shorts. I'm
Mhm.
all blacked out, murdered out. So I go into class. I go into this class. It was Tasia's class, actually, who is so dope, from
Yeah.
Nine Treasures. And I go into class, and everyone's just looking at me. There's like 50 non-Sikh people, like really just practitioners of Kundalini.
Yeah.
And we're in this dojo, like, because that's where she rents out this karate space back in the day before she got her own space. And all these beautiful men, women, just like cool people, nice energy. Everyone's so um, happy and so joyful to get to know you. Just very inviting.
Yeah.
And I walked in and I'm wearing all black. And for me, it was very simple. Sitting down in Indian style, like cross-legged, that's part of my culture. I grew up, that's how you sit in the temple. For me, sitting in that pose is like easy. Whereas you could see other people who haven't done that and who just, oh my God, they were having a hard time putting their knees down. Whereas for me,
Yeah.
it's just, even if I'm a bigger guy, like I'm a linebacker, it looks like, so it was easy. So they started doing stuff, and I just kept along with it, and I enjoyed it. And the last song that she played, which I was tripping, I loved it so much, was "May the Longtime Sun Shine Upon You," and it was by Amrit Kirtan, which is one of the girls that doesn't get a lot of play, like Satnam Kaur or
Yeah.
Jed Jagdish or all those girls, but I'm a big music fan, huge music fan. Like I'll listen to you name it, I love it, and in my spinning classes, I'm obsessed with it. And I just love that song, and that's how I got into. That's how I wrote.
Beautiful.
I got inspired by that song, and that whole season that I designed was based on that. On May the Longtime Sun Shine Upon You, because that's my favorite thing, the sun. I'm a
Yeah.
Leo. I'm a summer baby, and I the most beautiful thing is the sun. And
I
when I
love
have the
that.
sun, days are always better.
It's so true. Oh, I love it even more now. Now that I heard the story again of how you were guided to that. And I still have the t-shirt. It's probably like 6 years old at this point. I can never
Easily.
get rid of it. I
Yeah.
also love the happiness one with the money signs because that reminds
Right.
me of abundance and how abundance does bring happiness. I love that one.
So the one thing when
Um,
I design my clothing line, it's very my personal experience is whatever that season is, like any creative director,
yeah,
and it changes from season to season. And I was inspired that season, like very much by, I guess, Kundalini like lectures that I heard or the couple classes that I went to, and I just thought it was a cool thing. And like, just forget about the whole Kundalini thing, just the breath work and just to
yeah.
relax and the meditation, whatever your meditation was. It was just a nice time to just chill out. You know.
Totally. And I think I know that's what it does. It really does awaken that creative energy within ourselves. And it's, it's interesting because as a creative myself, I cannot make a decision unless it's from that space, that
Yeah.
aligned space that comes straight from my practice that just pushes me forward. And I truly like sit and wait and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to make a change. I'm not going to release anything. I'm not going to create anything until I get that push. And it's the best feeling. And I'm so excited to hear that that's what guided that line. I want to go back to the whole line and see what else was in that line.
Yeah,
I
no,
want
I
it
got to
all.
remember what it was in that line. And that was a good collection. I really liked that collection. It was beautiful. I really felt inspired to design that line, especially back then when we were doing a lot of graphics. And, there's a fine line when you design graphics for t shirts, sweatshirts, any clothing. Like we sell around 500 stores around North America, to the best stores in the world.
Bloomingdale's being one,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
Bloomingdale, Saks, all those kind of top stores, and then a lot of mom and pop boutiques, which is what we love because
Yeah.
we're really in like different cities and people. Like, who would have thought that you and I would connect, and where you are, like you said, my that T-shirt I thought would kill it in L.A. in New
Yeah.
Mexico, Kundalini or yoga specific places, and I'm not even a yoga fan. I actually don't like yoga. I like Kundo a lot. I love Kundalini because it's more of the spiritual practice of the whole thing. I'm not even saying that I'm a Kundalini practitioner. I
I
enjoy
think
it.
I think we have to like come on. I think you got to do some more, please.
No, no, I definitely will do more designs because I think I have to bring back "May the Long Time Sun Shine Upon
I
You"
think so too.
because I've been listening to it nonstop this
Yeah.
last 2 weeks. I was on vacation in Miami and just at the pool, like listening to my earbuds, and I was just like, oh yeah, I love this. Or even doing like a
Oh,
cold plunge for 30 minutes and just relaxing. And I don't know, it's a sweet thing. And there's other stuff
yeah.
too. There's a bunch of some Kundalini music. I'm really a little bit like, because remember, I know the original pronunciations. I know
Right.
the original Sikh, and not all of it's Sikh. Like it's very interesting how Kundalini and Sikh, it's people put them together, but they're completely separate.
So I want to take a moment to talk about this because some of the listeners might be wondering what we're talking about. I actually
Right.
created a podcast all about this from my level of knowledge, and
Mhm.
you have been such a teacher to me in that aspect of bridging this. So Kundalini is not a religion. It is a practice that
Yep.
I believe helps you to awaken the Kundalini energy within yourself. And from this practice, there are mantras that have been used in Sikhism for thousands of years. So, mostly, and correct me if
Not
I'm wrong.
even thousands of years, hundreds of years, because Sikhism is a very young religion. It only started in 1469. So it's really only hundreds of years that these mantras were like these shabits or lyrics
Mhm.
were uttered by the gurus or whatnot. But yeah,
So
keep
the
going.
No, no, no. So I'm grateful for your interjection, and please stop me wherever. But from what I understand, a lot of the mantras are
Mhm.
shared with Sikhism,
Yeah,
but the yoga and the breath work and the meditation is separate, and
completely.
the mantra is where they connect. And um, I know that Mool mantra is one of your holiest
Yeah.
prayers that you practice, and I will never forget. I There was a new moon or a full moon where
Mhm.
I was listening. Ugh, I just get chills
Mhm.
listening and playing it back in my mind. It is, I believe it's White Suns,
Yeah.
Ek Onkar Satanam, and it's like a very upbeat.
Right.
Um, song of it. And I was on the beach in the sun where I feel most connected in a bikini,
Mm.
jamming out, feeling one with the universe, one with
Right.
this connectedness. And someone messaged me or commented on it who said,
Right.
"You should not be saying this. This is a very holy prayer. And you should absolutely not be saying it in a bathing suit. And this is from our holy book. You should learn more about it before you say it." And
Mm.
immediately I was embarrassed because my intention is never to disrespect
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
anybody.
Right.
And it was actually a great moment for me because the conversation shifted and the person on the other side wasn't there to be a troll. He
No.
wasn't there to try to attack me. He
No.
was saying, "What is this girl doing?" Saying a holy prayer that I know of and being in a bikini and just chanting it and not understanding my connection to it. And he messaged me back saying, "Oh my goodness, I understand now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You," he said, "you know this from Kundalini.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
actually not because you're a practicing Sikh or trying to be a practicing Sikh."
Mm.
And it was like, I'm so happy I actually engaged in the conversation because sometimes it could be intimidating and you don't even want to go there with people because some
Right.
people get into those conversations for the wrong reasons. What happened between us was actually incredible. And
Right.
he helped me to understand another perspective and he understood another perspective and was like, "Oh, I understand now." So
Well,
it's
kudos,
interesting,
kudos to that guy. Kudos to that
right?
gentleman because
Right?
the reality of it is like, I've lived my whole life with a turban, a Sikh, and I'm in
Mhm.
an area where there was no other Sikhs. Like, really, there was no other
Yeah.
Sikhs. So growing up, and like, you just have to be, I think when you're born and raised as a Sikh, like your parents, and then you become a Sikh and whatnot, in North America, you kind of are a little bit more like accepting of like, let me hear the other point of view, why they did that and why they didn't
Mhm.
do that and why. Oh, okay. And the fact that he was able to like cognitively like say, oh, she's not coming at this in a bad malicious way, but she's
Yeah.
coming at it on a, like you said, like, oh, she's just like jamming out because she's so taken by that script or those lyrics or whatnot. But I think he's also trying to understand, like, maybe you're like one of those people who gets like, who's not Asian and gets Asian, like, tattoos, and they're like, do you even know what that means? Like, I think he was kind of
Mhm.
saying that also, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? Just giving you a heads up, and the fact that you didn't like stop him and like say, hey, don't tread on me or anything like that. Like, it's very interesting.
I just think, and I've always felt this way, I really believe in this universal oneness. And personally feel so grateful that I have access to something that is part of a religion. I don't use it religiously, I use it spiritually, and that I can.
Yeah.
And how transformative these mantras are. If I put Adagrude Name on, my immediate energy completely shifts. Like I will play that when I'm in a funk and I come out feeling like $1,000,000.
Yeah,
It's
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 because
magical.
there's something about that for you and for other people who have the same feeling. It kind of centers them. We live in a
Yeah.
chaotic life, and you've talked about anxiety and stuff like that, and in your podcasts and your other mediums, and whatever can make you chilled out is
Yeah.
awesome. And
Yeah.
for you, you found that this has helped millions of other people, and even the people that you are like your followers or people who engage in your programs and listen to your Instagram, and they're like, they did not know anything, but they realize that something's like chaotic in their mind, and it
Mhm.
happens to anybody. And I think, like you were talking about gut feeling, right? That gut feeling is always there, but it's clouded. And
Yeah.
having certain practices like you have with Ad May, or like all these mantras, it helps you out, and
Yeah.
it allows you to clear that. So there's a passage for your gut feeling to come out and give you the right answer. And that's all it
Mhm.
is, and I feel, and
Yeah.
I get it because I trip on Indian classical music, for example.
Mhm.
I trip on other things. I also Sikh mantras to me are everything. I grew up playing Indian classical music, Sikh classical music, performing in the temples and all that kind of stuff. So I totally understand the euphoric nature that it gives you to feel that way. And not just you, lots of people, including me.
Yeah.
Even like May the
Yeah.
Longtime Sun, just to go back to that song, it's not a Sikh hymn. It's not a Sikh anything. It just happened to be that that's a conclusion song for most, practices or training sessions in Kundalini. And it just still, I love it. And I think it's still
Yeah.
amazing. So it's awesome.
I would have to agree. So I want to know more about Sikhism, your beliefs, your practices. I have always been someone that's so interested in all religions. And it's something you've shared with me before. I loved learning more about it, especially because there is some type of connection to Kundalini, the mantras we share. So tell me a little bit about like the beliefs you grew up with, the beliefs you have now, your practices, your diet. I know that you have so many specific things to share, and also why you do wear black.
Okay. So I'll start backwards. I might forget some stuff. I wear black. I'm a big guy, so I'm trying to be fashionable and hide myself, I guess, get a little bit smaller. I wear all colors, actually, to be quite honest with you. But
Okay.
lately, I guess I'm becoming like, like most men, you always wear the same thing over and over again. So I'm always
Mhm.
known to be wearing a black polo with some like khakis or black pants or whatnot. And I'm very chill like that. And I feel it easy. Like my mother, for she buys me one thing a year for my birthday. She'll buy me 10 black polos in my size, and she knows. Like she just knows that that's what I want. I'm not a materialistic person. I'm a very simple guy for certain things, and for me, clothes are just. Even though I'm a designer, and like most designers, you wear what you. Whenever you look at a designer, they usually are just wearing the same thing over and over again most times. But so that's why I just got into the habit of just wearing. I feel comfortable. That's where I feel, but I'll change my turban color to white, blue, pink, green, whatever, depends on the style. So that's for the clothing. For myself, I've been a Sikh my whole life. I got baptized when I was 11 or 12 years old. Uh, and I just liked the religion. My parents, my dad's from New Delhi, my mom's from, born in Africa, but actually is Indian. And when they came here to Canada, they had me. I'm a 1979, I'm a Gen X kind of guy. So I grew up with Indian music, like Sikh, not
Yeah.
even Bollywood. I'm not really into the pop culture vibe, but more like, you know, the the spiritual side. My dad would have gospel kirtan. You know what kirtan is, and
Yeah.
that's what's performed at all the temples and whatnot. So Sikhism basically is a very modern religion. It's like I said, birthed in 1469 by Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and he's the first guru. So in Sikhism, there is one God, and that one God is just a spirit. It's
Mm.
transcendent. It's not male. It's not female. It's not an it. It's just a spirit, and that spirit is God. You can in different religions. It could be anything else. It's the universe. It's that energy, that universal, source
Yeah.
that we talk about all the time. It just happens to be in a guided religion. Now, that religion was there to kind of get rid of caste systems from the Hinduisms and to get away from also like how men and women were attached. It's really rooted in a lot of just being a good person, like most religions, being
Yeah.
fair to other people, being the equality between everybody, man, woman, child, any race, any sex, to not really, and to be more um, positive within yourself. And that's what the religion is based on. And, we have a couple of code of conducts um, so that we can illustrate our, just kind of like a practice, just like you have a practice. There's practices for practicing Sikhs to uphold because we feel those things. For example, I have never ate meat in my life, no chicken, no nothing like that, no fish. I've never drank in my life. I've never
Wow.
had alcohol,
Never.
like never, 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 never. I've never
Wow.
smoked. I've never done drugs. I've never done anything like that. Uh,
You're a clear channel.
yeah, my vices, other things, like sugar and pizza and all that
Yeah.
wonderful stuff, which I could cut down, but that's another story. But I've never had that because I grew up like that. So we didn't have
Yeah.
meat in the house. We didn't have. So
Yeah.
I can have a wonderful meal and having Indian cuisine as your mom was cooking. It's very flavorful, so you can actually enjoy
Yeah.
vegetarianism with that. Don't get me wrong. I if someone that wants to have meat right in front of me, I'm cool with it. I don't get
Mhm.
weirded out. My business partner, he eats meat, he drinks, he does his stuff. It doesn't bother me because I never cared about that. I don't care about other people, what they do, as long as they're polite and respectful towards me.
Yeah.
And that's the whole purpose of the Sikh culture. Is the Sikh religion is about live and let live, and be a brotherhood, sisterhood towards everyone else, and that no one is better than anyone else. If you're a king or if you're a peasant, you all are the same person. And our main goal in life is to do good things and be good people, just like any other religion, and so that we can kind of have a wonderful life, because life is so
Yeah.
tough and stressful, and that's
So
and
true.
that's what it is. Now, I've never cut my hair. Like, this beard is tucked in, but I've never cut my hair. My hair is
Never
never
once.
once, never, never, never once, because the religion is basically, we believe that God, or a universal source, is so smart. They've created
Mm.
two eyeballs, just to give you a one thing, two like holes for eyeballs, two holes for your ears, two holes for all your bodily functions. If you think about it, women and men are such an amazing machine. Like,
Yeah.
our respiratory systems, like, we don't even know what we're doing. Like, if you treat your body well, it'll treat you well too. And it just, so why do we have to adorn it and change it and do stuff when you're already, God has created the perfect machine? So that's why
Wow.
we don't cut our hair, and we get strength from our hair, and that's
Mm.
like, kind of like Samson kind of vibe. And we put it up, because in our day-to-day life, that's why we put a turban on. It's just basically a modern version of a crown kind of vibe. That's what people would say. Because if you look at
Beautiful.
old school Indian Maharajas and kings, they would have turbans as their crowns with jewels. Like, even like, that's why all the jokes that I used to get, like Mike Tyson's Punch Out, the great tiger jewel, like, oh, there's a guy with the jewels. But that's why, because all the kings wore turbans. So when one of the gurus, there's 10 gurus, he basically, when he solidified the religion, he said that he wants all his Sikhs to feel recognized. So that's why we wear a turban. It means nothing else. It
Okay.
just means that as a
Okay.
recognition point, oh, if you're in trouble, there's a Sikh, because we always have to help out other people. We'll never start a fight, but we won't let that, we don't go for oppression. So if
Mm.
you're ever in trouble, and you'll hear there's so many stories like, oh, a Sikh will always come out of his way to help out, him or her. It's
Wow.
one of those things, and that's how it started, kind of thing.
I have chills.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm like emotional right now hearing
And I'm
that. That
giving you
is,
a very,
oh my
very quick and
gosh.
easy overlying view of it. I mean, it gets more
Yeah.
intricate as you practice and whatnot.
Yeah. Of course. Of course. Like everything. But I appreciate that overview. And it sounds like such a beautiful foundation to be a good person on this earth, especially in the times that we're living in. And it's interesting because with Kundalini, with the turban, at first I thought it was more of like like when I think of a head covering, I kind of go back to the
No,
Catholicism
it is too. It
or,
is. You're not wrong.
okay.
It's also
Yeah,
respectful.
because I would think of it like that. But then when I heard it was more about, well, in Kundalini at least, it's a lot about your crown chakra and containing the energy. I never really feel affected when I don't have a headpiece on.
Mm.
Now that it's a modern day crown, definitely makes me want to wear one every day because that's just beautiful. But but yeah, like it became a practice for me where I just rolled out of bed, got into it, and it delivered everything and more. So that's interesting to learn about. And let me ask you a question. Is Om Namo Gurudev Namo part of your daily practice or
No,
part of
no.
Sikhism?
So,
So
the
that's just
yeah,
Kundalini.
that's so. There's a lot of beautiful scriptures in Sikhism made by the gurus and whatnot. The guy who, the man, and he's a magical man. He started Kundalini in the United States. He didn't start it, but he
Mm,
popularized it, especially in the
yes.
70s and 80s, and that was Yogi Bhajan. And whatever
Yeah.
someone may think or may not think of Yogi Bhajan, he was the guy who was the catalyst for promoting this, especially in New Mexico, California, the West Coast. Especially during that time, like very hippie, very like, free love,
Woodstock.
Woodstock, that kind of vibe. And people are trying to figure out, there's a lot of LSD, a lot of people were doing a lot of drugs, and people were doing a lot of like
Yeah.
stuff that after a while they're like realizing, shit, this might not be cool. Like this might not be good for me. So
Yeah.
what they were looking for anything, like anybody, not just Kundalini, they were looking for some way to find themselves, I guess, in some spiritual practice.
Yeah.
And this gentleman who was really a customs officer in India, and he came here and he was into Kundalini yoga, and he started practicing, and people started learning about him, and he was a good speaker, and he was
Mhm.
able to explain this practice. But because he looked, and funny enough, if you were to look at Yogi Bhajan and you look at me, we're very similar. And it's kind of freaky because even like Tage, when she saw me, she kind of like, whoa, like kind of like a younger version because I'm big and like the turban and like all that kind of stuff was similar. But basically, he was just able to orientate to people or explain to people how to feel better. And that was by just calming themselves,
Yeah.
calming their nervous systems, the things that you practice, which are beautiful, beautiful things. And he was able to, because he
Yeah.
was a Sikh, he brought in beautiful scriptures and beautiful things from the Sikh, like that he grew up with as an Indian man, as a Sikh man, and he brought it into Kundalini. But it wasn't,
Yeah.
being a Kundalini enthusiast doesn't mean you're a Sikh. It just so happened that people loved him so
Right.
much. They loved that how he felt, how they felt because of his practices. They said, "Hey, why do you wear a turban? Hey, why do you not eat meat? Hey, why do you not?" So they were curious, and when he started teaching them, they kind of got into it, and that's how they became white Sikhs. And those white Sikhs, he just said, "Oh, everyone wear white," because he felt that he was the one who kind of incorporated both of those viewpoints, like the Sikhism, but then he's getting popular as a Kundalini teacher, so he's making his mark of the white, all white.
Right.
But if you look at it, he actually wears an orange turban quite a bit, which is a very Sikh color.
Mhm.
It's like the main Sikh color if you were to wear on an occasion that's like Christmas is red and green. It's the same kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Orange is the Sikh color, if there's a color.
So what I wanted to say in response to that is I actually did a podcast on the origin of Kundalini and even some of the controversy with
Okay.
Kundalini, because there are people who, and we don't have to get into the whole thing because I did on a separate
Yeah.
podcast, but there are people who are so confused because of the allegations with Yogi Bhajan. And there's people who also are triggered that some of the practices in Kundalini are from
Yeah.
Sikhism. Um, has that ever triggered you? Has it ever triggered your family members? Like, is that something that you were like, this is kind of weird? Why is a yoga using
No,
these
I mean, I
mantras?
know some Sikhs who have a hard time with it. Actually, a lot of Sikhs have a hard time with it. But remember, I'm born and raised here, and I really believe, as
Yeah.
much as I'm a religious person, but as much as I'm religious, I'm actually infinity more about spirituality and about feeling good about yourself and trying to
Mhm.
be nice to everybody and having good energy and good consciousness and whatnot, which I think is more important than any, religion to me is just like a structural way of how you want to practice, because some people can't just get into being a nice person. I think every religion has wonderful tenets, but for me,
Yeah.
but I think the people that practice those religions fuck everything up. And and it's like that joke that I always love to hear, like, if you really think about religion, it's really just me and you having an argument, like my imaginary friend is better than your imaginary friend.
I
But
love
why can't
that.
but, but why can't both imaginary friends just be awesome? You know?
Yeah.
Like that Jesus was a
Yeah.
great guy, and so was a great guy, and
Mhm.
Allah was a great guy, and Buddha was, a little chubby, but he was a great guy. But like, all this kind of stuff, I think I just, this whole thing about, that's what I really believe in my practice. As much as I'm a Sikh, I've
Yeah.
evolved over the years, and this is something that you were talking about. I was very strict, strict, strict. I'm pretty strict, but I've also realized for my growth, what I care about. Sometimes when you go to a temple or whatnot, Sikhism or any type of church or thing like that, there's so many rules. And I don't think
Yeah.
religion or spirituality should be so guided by rules. If today you feel like this and you're not hurting anybody, that's okay. Like
Yeah.
you chanting to the moon, with Kundalini, you know, mantras, that's okay. It's totally fine. And if tomorrow you have to go to Christmas dinner with your parents who, you know what I mean, who don't,
And say the Hail Mary.
yeah, and that you're going to a church, that's okay too. I go to
Yeah.
seders with my friends all the time. Like, they're
Mhm.
Jewish, and or I go to the, like, if someone has to get married, I go to a church, and I think it's so cool learning about other religions all day,
Me
every day. I
too.
love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, am I a little bit biased towards Sikhism? Yeah, but I try to be so open minded that there's good to learn from, like, especially now with Instagram. If you saw who I followed, yeah, I follow some fashion people, some models, a lot of sports, but I also follow that guy Bishop Jakes. He's a bishop. You know,
Mhm.
he says good things. My father, I remember in the '80s when I was like 8, 9 years old, he would watch Billy Graham evangelistic the telethons, the evangelistic TV shows, and I would be always shocked. And he was so just interested by the fact that, hey, he might not wear a turban, but he's saying some cool stuff. Not everything.
Yeah.
Like, so the same thing.
It's
Same
incredible.
thing with Kundalini. Like, I have this thing with, like, Yogi Bhajan. Some of the shit that he said is so dope, like so dope, and I love it. But then there's some things that, like, there's certain teachers that I'm like, I don't like what you're saying. I don't think that's cool, but that's
Mhm.
okay. I don't have to tell
Yeah.
everyone. And maybe there's teachers that you have that you're like, oh, I love, love, love. And then there's some teachers
Yeah.
you're like, you're cringy,
Mhm.
or whatever your soul, or whatever your gut, or whatever your, like, how you always say it, like, how guided towards. That's
Yeah.
all that matters. I know people who go.
I
I know people
definitely
who go
agree.
once every 2 weeks to tarot card reading, and I think that's cool too. If
Mhm.
that's what that makes you feel good, great. Some people go to therapists.
Right.
Ultimately, we're not here for a long time, but it's a fucking long
Mhm.
journey.
Yes, it is.
And there's a lot of voices in our heads, and we're with our
Mhm.
voice all day, every day, 24/7. As much as you might have your husband Vinny talking your ear off to clean something, at the end of the day, you're 24/7 Erica's voice, and her
Mhm.
traumas and her triggers and her insecurities and fears. They creep up and creep up. And it's the same thing with anything. Like, why,
Yeah.
even when you started meditating, I can imagine all the voices that come into your head. You know,
Yep.
I started meditating when I was like 5 years old, literally five
I
years
know
old.
you shared that with me.
Yeah,
It's so
I was
cool.
lucky. I was like, okay, Hardy,
Yep.
shut up, sit down. When you're at the temple, don't talk, because the grunti, which is the priest, he's talking. So this is how you sit like this. You practice. Close your eyes. Don't worry, and you slow. And then I started liking it, and I was like, oh, this is kind of
Mhm.
cool. Whenever I feel weird, I can do that. And then you started
Yeah.
learning about Satnam, Waheguru, which are two beautiful words in the Sikh language. Satnam is the true name, and Waheguru is
Yep.
God is wonderful. You know, and I would remember even walking back from school. Like the sidewalk, they would have, like, slabs of sidewalk. Like there's like a. I would always make Waheguru. Like, my breath work was already like, I would inhale with Waheguru, why, and then I would breathe out with Guru, and that's how I got into it. And then you start chanting, but after a while, I believe you stop chanting because it's just within you and you're just calm.
Yeah.
But I think it's a wonderful practice
Yeah.
to chant initially so that all the other voices are out. So you're focused and directed until you get to that point. And it might never happen.
Yes.
It might never happen. You might always
Yep.
have to chant. And I've done it. I still
Mm.
chant. And I sometimes I don't even chant at all. And I'm saying, I'm not
Yeah.
even doing the stuff that you're doing as a Kundalini practitioner. I'm doing my own stuff. And whatever works, I think it's a beautiful thing. And I was very fortunate as a young age to start meditating, especially in a crazy world. So
Yeah.
whenever I feel a little bit anxious or whatnot, I have to just retreat. I can close my eyes and I can just meditate and breathe. And that's
Mhm.
all it is, breathing. Everything is okay. If
Yeah.
you're breathing, everything's okay.
So true. And I appreciate your viewpoint so much. And I really appreciate it. I'm, like, at a loss for words because, with such a secret practice, and it's so sacred to me, I never wanna come off as anything other than, like, authentically sharing something that has truly worked for me that I think can help other people, and it's so nice to hear your point of view and also hear about you bridging the I guess gap, but bridging spirituality to religion. And this practice actually helped me make more sense out of my own religion and every other religion too,
Yeah,
and bringing me into that oneness space. So that
100%.
alone, I'm just like, wow. Can you share what your name means? Because we've spoken about this HAR when we chanted, it's HUD, and it's a very high frequency sound.
Yeah, so Hardeep, so I spell it Hardip, but if you
Mhm.
pronounce it's Hardeep, Hardeep. So HUD is a wonderful word. It's resonant, it's
Mhm.
whatnot. My full name means light of God, because deep means light and HUD means God.
Mhm.
It's a synonym for God. So most Sikh names they're unisex. You can use them for man or woman. Like in Western cultures, like certain names like Bob, not many girls are named
Yeah.
Bob. You know, not many girls, not
Mhm.
many guys are named Erica. You know what I mean? There's Eric or
Right.
Erica, kind of
Yeah.
thing. So,
Yeah.
there's my, so for me, what happens is that when you're born as a Sikh or born into a Sikh family, the first time you bring your child to the temple, which is within the first 2 weeks, they, at the end of the mass, they open the Guru Granth Sahib, which is our Bible, our scripture, our holy scripture, and they open it up and they randomly say a passage, and the first letter that is said from anywhere, that's where traditionally the family takes the name from. So if it's an S, then your name is going to start with an S. Mine happened to start with Hud, so my parents came up with
Wow.
the name Hardeep. Yeah, and like my sister is Gurpreet, like
Beautiful.
G. So Gurpreet, then that's God's love, because
Beautiful.
Hud and good are the same like synonym, and Preet is love. So Gurpreet is God's love, and mine's God's life, which makes sense. That's why I love the
Beautiful.
sun a lot.
Yeah,
I'm
right?
obsessed. It's ridiculous.
Oh, how is it where you are right now? Is the sun
No,
out?
it's fucking cloudy. It's
Oh, I
upstate.
can't wait.
It's New
I
York.
mean, it's sunny here today,
Yeah,
but
it's
I got a taste of it. You were in Florida too.
yeah.
I got a taste of it, and it's just like I didn't know how much I was missing it until I was in it. And now I'm like, "Okay, the countdown to summer is
I
here."
think it's affecting me
Can
more. I
you
think it's affecting me more as I age. Before it didn't bother me, but now I'm like, oh, I would like the sun.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Can you share more of what you're doing right now about your clothing line, about anything that we can, like, look out for?
Yeah. So cheerleader is really. Um, I've had it.
Can you spell it for
Yeah,
everyone so
yeah.
they know how?
Cheerleader without the vowel. So CHRLDR. It's just a wonderful clothing line that my business partner and I started. My buddy Eric and I started like 9, 10 years ago, and it came out as a joke. We were going to just make graphic T-shirts for people and whatnot. And funny enough, it started becoming popular. And from graphic T-shirts, and I designed everything. Started getting to more. We got into activewear. We got into hoodies. We sold to contemporary stores around the nation. And now we've evolved the line over the last couple of years. In COVID, everyone wanted to wear hoodies and sweatpants and sweatshirts,
Yeah.
but now they're wanting more formal stuff. Women want to wear, sexy dresses and more formal stuff. They're going out with their husbands or girlfriends for a night out and whatnot. So yeah, the line is ever evolving. Our website is great, a lot of great stuff. Over the last year, I rebranded in the sense of I was trying to understand what cheerleader meant and why did I name it 9 years ago. And I went through a
Mhm.
lot of stuff over the last 2, 3 years with some personal stuff, and I started realizing what cheerleader actually meant, and what I really believed it was. I always wanted a simple name. I wanted a simple thing that Americans, Canadians could understand, and everyone knew what cheerleaders were. Traditionally,
Mhm.
cheerleaders, like every woman wanted to be a cheerleader in high school, and every guy wanted to be with a cheerleader in high school. Traditionally, not everyone, but that's the general, consensus. You watch Riverdale, you watch, you know, all those shows and all those kind of things, and that's what it
Yeah.
really was. And then a couple of months ago, actually a year and a bit ago, my business partner and I decided, like, you know what, we should really focus on the branding of the brand, of our brand, and not just make good clothing. So we really decided to focus, and I came up with the idea of cheerleader. And at that time, I've done a lot of spiritual practicing of myself and my getting back to my psychology, with my master's in psych, and I started realizing things like how people don't love themselves, and how people, and, like, I'm very lucky that my partner Eric and I, my business partner and I, he and I talk as dudes. I'm very lucky that I have 4 or 5 friends, dudes, who are we talk about our emotions. 5 straight
Yeah.
guys, and all we do is talk about, hey, how do you feel? Yeah, we talk about sports and all that stuff, but I'm very fortunate that I have that. And when we sometimes I'll take half an hour and get into his office, I'm like, yeah, this is bothering me, this is bothering me, and we're talking about why did it bother us? Why did it trigger us? So I had some serious I like I said, some personal stuff that went on with a relationship of mine that I just said, you know what? I started learning about myself more and learning about that other person more. And I realized that people ultimately don't love themselves. And I see it on
Mhm.
Instagram, I see it on social medias, I see it on everywhere. And ultimately, if we loved ourselves, we are able to love other people. It sounds so cliche, but it's so true. So what I realize is that
It's so true.
ultimately, the reality of my brand is, and that's what clothing does for women. From what I've thought, is that it makes them happy for a little bit. So what I wanted cheerleader
Mhm.
to be is kind of like a reminder to people to love themselves. So be your own cheerleader. Be your own practitioner. You don't need anyone else. You don't need a man to validate you. You don't need another girl or a woman to validate you. You don't need your parents or your children or anything. You, at the end of the day, are by yourself. Yes, you have children and you'll have the utmost love, but sometimes women get so, like, just that's all their life is, and they forget about themselves, and
Yeah.
then 10 years down the road they're like, holy shit, I've lost myself. And
Mhm.
that's what I wanted to do, and I rebranded the whole company last year. And I even, like, I didn't want to be one of those brands where it's like, oh, I'm a fearless woman or this, that, whatever, especially designed by 2 straight guys. What we did is that we're kind of like allies of women who want I want people to love themselves. So be your own cheerleader, promote yourself, even on every garment. I just didn't want it on the website. On every single garment, we have a little message that I put on and all of them are randomized, right underneath the label of cheerleader, where the size tag is, and it says, like, cherish the day. Don't let your fear become you. One of my favorite things is everything you need exists within you.
Yeah.
Especially this one woman. I've been listening to a lot of meditations lately, and there was this one woman whose meditation I'm just obsessed with. And she said that, and I was just like, fuck, that's so good. It's so true. So,
Yeah.
my purpose for the
So
brand
true.
is clothing will always come. We'll have beautiful t shirts. It's made in Peru, super soft, cool design. We have
Yeah.
celebrities wear them.
Great quality.
Great quality. It's like, well priced for what it is. And, we
Yes.
compete with everyone. But the main thing I want is that when someone opens up their closet in the morning, and whatever they're thinking in their head, if they haven't done a spiritual practice like you do, or a mantra, or whatever they do, or go for a run, that they walk in, take a shower, put on, like, open up their closet, and they see that when they pick up the hanger, they see that little statement like a fortune cookie. Maybe it'll give them a little pep in their step. Maybe it'll, like, oh,
Yeah.
it's a reminder of an affirmation of
Mhm.
self-love.
Yeah.
I'm not saying be fearless or powerful. There's a lot of powerful women, a lot of powerful men. But I think even the most powerful women and men are not, there's no self-love. And that's what we at Cheerleader
Mhm.
really want, that our clothing to make you feel good. Of course, we're capitalists. We want to make money. We want to do that. But ultimately, our secondary thing is, like, we really want people to just value themselves. And if they value themselves, they can be nice to other people. And that's all that matters.
It's so true. And as you're saying this, I am recognizing the contrast between being like fearless and powerful and starting from a place of love. And I think the world needs more of that. And when we have that within ourselves, when we truly And that's what the practice has also brought me. Like falling in love with yourself allows you to have the space to truly love, respect, and appreciate other people because everything does start within. And it's powerful that that's literally like embedded in the clothing. And I'm telling like from the second I saw your clothing, of course the mantra attracted my eye, but as I started to become a consumer of cheerleader and like check out like what's your latest
Yeah, yeah.
cheerleader items you got in, it's the quality, it's the energy, it's all there. And I see it, I appreciate it, and I love it,
Thank
and
you.
I
Yeah.
can't wait to see what else you
Yeah,
create.
no, we're really excited this season. Like we've really focused on more design and more, not just t-shirts and hoodies, and now we're getting into wovens and we're getting to full collections and sweaters and jackets, and it's really cool. It's really exciting. We're launching this next couple of weeks with our new collections, and I think from what sales
Nice.
reps and customers who have told us, it's been good. We're really excited about it,
Good.
and we're looking forward to hopefully your users will love it too.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
So can you share your social or cheerleader social, whichever one you would like to
Yeah,
share
I'll share
for the
both.
listeners to
So,
connect with?
yeah,
Yeah.
so I have our company social is cheerleader, so at CHRLDR. And there you'll find all our info about our stuff. Actually, you'll love it, especially because one little thing is that on our hang tags, they're tarot cards that we designed ourselves. So
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
so it's very different. So people love that, and we love, like we talk about it all the time, the
I can't wait.
new
So
moon, full
excited. Yeah.
moon, the zodiac. I'm a big fan of all that stuff. I love being like, I don't believe in the zodiac every day, but I do believe in the general traits. Like if you're a Capricorn, yeah, plus or minus, you may. I don't make any decisions on it, but I'm a true
Yeah.
and like proud Leo. I'm a very much a
Yeah.
Leo. So for me, what we do on our Instagram, and we're going to start doing it on our website, is that we have a new moon like post, a full moon post to explain
Oh,
to,
I love
yeah, because
that.
we think that women love that stuff, a little mysticism. We think it's romantic. I
Yeah.
love the art of tarot. We introduce that a lot. There's a lot of cool new stuff. So on cheerleader, you'll see that cheerleader at cheerleaders, CHRLDR. We have our website, cheerleader.com. And then my personal Instagram is it's more for me. It's just is Spin Turban, SPINTURBAN, and because I've taught spinning for almost 20 years before even Soul Cycle existed. So that's my personal
Yeah.
Instagram. I put a lot of funny stuff up and just interesting
I
ideas.
appreciate your post.
Yeah, yeah. I know you like my post. I like your post too, but
The only ones I don't understand are the
yeah,
sports
well,
ones.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Maybe like Vinny will like that, but I do have a lot of
Yeah.
sports references, but there's also a lot. It's like I'm a very I'm a child of my circumstances. Like I'll listen to kirtan and spiritual practices and spiritual meditations on Spotify, but then I'll also listen to Wu Tang Clan, the next track, or Dipset, and I'll
Totally.
listen to
Yeah.
and then I listen to Ry X, who's really on my radar these days, like Crazily or Fred Again, and people are like, huh? Even when I teach my spinning classes. So it's funny because that's one thing that I did incorporate from Kundalini is that in most spin classes you'll see that the instructor is all hyped up and like, let's go, 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 go. Whereas my first song basically is so subdued, and I do breath work the first song, and people are like, wow,
I love
yeah, to
that.
ground. So they ground themselves, forget about
Yeah.
the outside world, and those women and men have
Mhm.
45 minutes now to be here right now and do their thing, and people have really loved it. And I took that straight from Kundalini class.
I love that. Can you share where you teach? Because we do have a lot of listeners from
Oh yeah.
Canada.
So I kind of took a break, but now I'm back. So there's two places that I teach in Montreal. One place is Cadence Cycle. You can follow them on Instagram. Yaron is the guy who started it. He's an amazing guy. He's the first guy who started a spin studio in Montreal. Maybe like 15 years ago. He's great. And then also, I just started a new sessions at Rush Cycle in the West Island, another region of Montreal. And yeah, my schedules are on their Instagrams and stuff like that. And we have a very good time. I put it all in the dark. It's very meditative, but it's really intense, and people enjoy that as well. Yeah.
Beautiful. It's beautiful. It's such a good escape, and that's really it was my form of meditation for a very long time until I found Kundo, as you would call it. Now me and Vinny are like, "Oh, you're practicing Kundo?"
Yeah.
You gave us the nickname to
Yeah,
use.
no, my best friend Elliot, he got into it, and he's like, this guy was a party dude. This, if anything, I believe in
Yeah,
Kundo very much because I see how people who practice it, how their attitudes have changed, their demeanors have changed. People,
yeah,
like I'll tell you, I know for a fact from him, like someone who was taking anti-anxiety medication who now doesn't need to take anything, hasn't taken anything forever, was using alcohol to self-medicate like most people, like a lot of people in the universe. They just said, you know what,
yeah,
chill out. I'm not saying don't drink alcohol. I'm like, that's cool, but some people can do it. Some people just don't. Some people can't stop after the first drink, right? You know what I mean?
yep.
Whereas,
I was one of those
oh, were
people.
you? So yeah.
Yeah.
So some people just can't stop. It's like me. I know if I stop
Mhm.
eating sugar, I'm amazing. But if I eat one
Yeah,
thing, then I'm going to eat 10 things. And I'm like, oh, that's why I
totally.
have my weight on my weight. So that's why for me, any practice, no matter what it is, even as funny as it might look for for like on the outside to look at it, it actually might be
Yeah,
beneficial for that person. So if you love that person, let them do what the hell they want to do. If they want to chant
yeah,
Om Namo, Gurudev Namo, cool. And that's why I like, your that question about the whole Sikhism thing. How do they I always defend it. I'm like, hey man, it makes them good and they're not being assholes towards you. They're trying to be respectful. That's what I always loved about you. Like if anything came up, you'll DM me and you'll be like, hey Hardeep, what's up? Do you have 5 minutes? And I'm like, yeah. And then we'll have a conversation on the phone and say,
yeah,
and I think any Sikh or anybody, if you do that to them and say, hey, is this cool or is this not cool? It's like your necklace that
yeah,
you have, the Akonkar, which is super
yeah.
cool. And I noticed it on your post and I was like, hey, she's wearing an Akonkar. And you're like, oh my God, is that okay? Is it like, I said, it's totally okay. And it's totally cool.
Yeah.
It's just a beautiful word and you like the symbol. It's totally rad. But I,
Yeah.
but I
I
appreciate you
think
asking
in
me.
the
That's the whole thing. It was very cool. Not that you need to, but it's very polite.
absolutely, and I always want to be respectful, and I think that's a really big thing in the age of information is like what we're taking, we're being mindful of and conscious of and using it appropriately and having respect for where it came from and using it to do good, using it to better ourselves, hopefully better the collective, and that's really the space I always wish to move from. And, if there was anything to call me out on, you call me out. That's why we have this relationship
Yeah.
to just have that honest communication
It's not
and
even to call you out.
because
It's
everything's
yeah. It's
perspective.
also I don't want you to get any like backlash from someone who gets triggered because remember everyone
Mhm.
gets triggered. If they get triggered, it's because they're dealing with something that they don't even know about maybe
Yeah,
sometimes, and they lash out and all that stuff.
totally.
So you can't just live and let live, and if someone wants to do what they need to
Yes.
do, that's why people might have an opinion about kundalini. I have a positive opinion about it. Am I going to practice everything they do? No, I'm not even a practicing kundalini student, but there's certain things that I think
Mhm.
are super cool. And I think that
Yeah.
out of all the yogas, I think it's very interesting because, excuse me, they're the ones that are the most spiritually in tune to a yoga practice rather than being like an exercise course.
Totally.
If you want to do an exercise course, go do a spin class,
Totally.
go do a circuit training, go do, follow all the top like trainers and do your Pilates, but keep the meditation part because the mental, you can't do anything unless this is right. And if this is right,
So true.
and it's for a lot of people, even the guys, like even for you practice for so long, and even some days you probably still spin out of control, and I do too. I mean,
Yep.
it's happening to
Yep.
me recently, and I was like, "Holy shit! Why am I spinning out of control the last like couple of days?" And then yesterday, I just shut down everything, and I'm just like, "Okay, let's chill out." So I watched a couple of White Lotus episodes, and then
Everyone loves
and
it.
yeah, and then I listened to a lot of great music, chilled out music, some Kundalini music, some classical Indian music, which I've shared with you also, and then
Yeah.
and then I just meditated for 3 hours. And I was in and out. I wasn't always there. I mean, I could meditate, and I think that's the beauty. Being meditation doesn't have to be that you're sitting and you're just this one place and you have your arms out. I think meditation can be anywhere. I've been to clubs where they have raves and I'm just like quiet. Remember, no drugs, no drinking, no nothing. And I'm just enjoying the beat and that rhythmic beat of an
Yeah.
EDM like thing is just like, oh, cool. It's like this guy, Ryx, the artist.
Absolutely.
He's unbelievable. And he's like just singing. He's a great singer. But the way he presents himself, it's so beautiful that I get it. I feel it like it's meditation to me, you know?
Totally.
So that's why.
And it's so true. And the more we work it, the more you've been doing it since you're 5. So you can tap in at a rave. You can tap in wherever you are. And it's true. It's having that access anywhere we go. And it could look like chanting. It could look like listening to a chant. It could look like being in the sun, laying out in the
Yeah.
sun. It's so true. It's so
That's
true.
that's really helped me a lot. The main thing that's a new thing that I've been doing for the last 2 years is Wim Hof. and
Oh,
and
nice.
I'm really like I've been digging him for a long time. I got introduced by my buddy Elliot, and that has helped me a
Mhm.
lot. I love doing cold plunge, and
Yeah.
the breathing has helped me. Like I was in Miami, and I was in this Arctic cold plunge at a hotel, and I was sitting there. I was sitting in the tub for like 30 minutes at a time, and I thought it was great.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
wild.
People think I'm nuts, but like I just was chilling out, and people were coming into the cold plunge and they were like freaking out and they go in and out but I just told them, as long as you just like, there's no fear. There's Our brains and our bodies will evoke fear, but if you can control your brain and say, hey, I'm actually in a safe place, there's no risk of
Yep.
danger, I'm not dying, and then when you calm yourself down, then everything makes sense. And I think that has happened. I used to be very anxious about certain things when I lost control. I'm a little bit of a control
Yep.
freak, which is not the greatest, but
Many of us are.
and I
Yeah.
realized, I'm like, oh, nothing's really happening. That panic that I'm having, it's just me fearful. But what am I fearful about? And then I ground
Exactly.
myself and I chill out and I'm like, okay, everything's okay. And that's helped me
Yeah.
throughout the last couple of years.
I love
Yeah.
that. Oh my gosh, you provided so much wisdom and love and light. And I could literally talk to you all day, every day. You already know
Yeah.
this, but
Vice versa.
I feel so grateful that we can have other people like listening into this
Thank you.
conversation, because I feel like there's so much in here. There's so much to unpack. And you are such a definition of 5D energy oneness.
Thank you. I wish.
And you absolutely are. And I see that and I feel that every time we connect. So thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
being here
No, I
today.
really appreciate you
Thank
inviting me
you.
and letting me spew my words and whatnot. But I hope I didn't offend anybody. But I really appreciate your time, and what you're doing with this podcast is awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm going to put the link in the show notes to Shop
Awesome.
Cheerleader if anyone is interested, which I feel like many will
Yeah.
be. And if you want to connect or reach out, you have both social handles that you can check out there as well. But I just want to thank you again so much for being here.
Thank you so much. I really
Thank
appreciate it again.
you. Thank you. And we'll end with the longtime sun. May the longtime sun shine upon you. Thank you.
Satnam.
Satnam.
Thank you so much.